Hari Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviyam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Janakalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidwaram. Om Sri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopakarottam Pravaram Muninam Patanjali Pranjalina Natosmi. Hari Om. It is quite an interesting observation to see and analyze how we react with the world. When I interact with the world, I have a confirmed notion that this body and this mind, which is Mr. So and so, interacts with the objects, which has a particular name and a particular shape. Imagine an interaction between me and Pradeep ji. When we say I spoke to Pradeep ji, everyone understands that I have interacted with him, including me as well as Pradeep ji. But have we ever observed what is this interaction? It is interaction of this body through the senses of the concept called Pradeep ji, which is stationed in my mind. See how funny it is. I presume that I know Pradeep ji, but what I know of him is what my mind thinks of him. And my presumption is so concrete that I have no qualms about what I feel about Pradeep ji. So in my mind, Pradeep ji is A, B, C, D, E. Some attributes I ascribe to him based on my mind without ever thinking that he may be a different entity than what I feel. And mind well, when I say a different entity, I'm not talking about interpretation by another mind like Himanshuji. Himanshuji, with the help of his body, his senses, and his mind, when he interacts with Pradeep ji, there is a different Pradeep ji that is projected by his mind. So each one of us have different opinion, different feeling about same object, simply because every interaction that we have in this world is only at the level of body, mind, and the senses. What it means is the mind is behind what is called as particulars. Let us take an example to understand this. There is a child, a toddler, crying incessantly at the airport. My mind tells me that there is the child who is crying incessantly, which is so irritating to me that I would love to give him a slap and make him quiet. This is what my mind thinks. But moment the child is mine, the whole thought changes that no, he must be in need of something. I have a compassion in mind. I feel that no question of slapping him. He should be cuddled, cajoled. He should be told to keep quiet. He should be given what he needs. In other words, what happened is the same object gave two different impressions in the mind, and we behaved favorably or unfavorably. The fundamental question is this the right interaction, or there is another way of interacting with anything in this world? And there comes a completely different way of looking at the things depending upon the perspective. So when the body, mind, and senses interact with the naam and the roop, or the body, mind, senses of the other party, the interaction is at imaginary level. It is a mind interacting with the mind based on the capacity of the mind, interpreted by the mind. So what happens is, whenever the mind, body, and the senses, when the mind through the senses of the body comes in contact with any object or subject, there is a creation of sensation or perception, which then results into cognition. What is the result of this sensation? The result of the contact itself is the sensation. What is the reaction? The reaction is agreeable or not agreeable. What is the strategy adopted by the mind? If it is agreeable, procure it or accumulate it. If it is not agreeable, do not procure it, avoid it. What is the sum total effect of this interaction? Keep accumulating that interaction which is favorable to you, and more effort is made to have such procurements. What is the resultant pattern in the mind because of this? The resultant pattern is sanskar, or aptitude and attitude for accumulating favorable responses from the interaction only. In order to have favorable responses, I keep changing the subjects and the objects and keep fathoming what is favorable for me. If the mind says that this is not favorable to you, I shift my focus to another object. So far, my mind was telling me that Pradeep ji is a wonderful individual. I must meet him. So the mind compels me to give him a call and somehow try and meet him. But after the meeting, something happened. I was not happy. Now the mind tells me, avoid him. So attachment, avoidance, attachment, avoidance. This is the way the mind works. The beauty of, or the surprising element of mind is when it avoids the attachment at particular subject or object, it searches for new attachments. So it contacts for interaction, palpates or studies whether the result is favorable or not, and then attaches itself there. Till the time the attachment survives, the interaction continues. The scooter was the most desired object till the time the attachment was there. The moment scooter becomes a routine affair, the mind does not like that interaction. Now it tries to attach to the car. All this leads to a resultant pattern called sanskar, which results into a character or attitude or aptitude, and this aptitude is called pravritti. Prakarshena vrittaye. There is inherent inclination or desire for such kind of accommodation. So our life is nothing but a play of mind interacting with the things around it by segregating between favorable and unfavorable reactions on a continuous basis, as a result of which this cycling of patterns and aptitudes or the pravrutti requires different matter vestures, as Gurudev calls it, to fulfill the so-called attachments which have not yet been complete, which means there is a need for us to pick up different bodies suitable for those attachments. The crux of the matter is, whenever I interact with the mind. Then what is the right interaction? This is an abnormal interaction according to the yogi. In other words, 99.99999% of the universe or the people are interacting abnormally. It puts a question, if this is an abnormal interaction, then what is a normal interaction? A normal interaction is when the senses are put in contact with anything around us, the body and the senses give to the mind the input signal of what they have perceived. Up to this point, the normal and abnormal interaction is same. A yogi also sees a tree. We also see a tree. Yogi sees a man. We also see a man. Up to this point, both interactions are normal. The difference starts thereafter. Our interaction stops at the level of mind and lets mind interpret whatever has happened and consider that as a final opinion and work accordingly. Well, in case of a yogi, yogi takes the interaction beyond the mind, and behind or beyond the mind is consciousness. केनेशितं प्रेषितं पतति मनः केन प्राणः प्रथमः प्रैतियुक्तः केनेशितं वाचम् इमां वदन्ति श्रोत्रचक्षुकौ देवो युनक्ति. यत् मनसा न मनुते येन आहुर्मनोमतं यत् प्राणं प्राणः न प्रणीते येन प्राणेन प्रणीयते येन चक्षुषां यत् चक्षुषां न पश्यन्ति येन चक्षुंषि पश्यति. केनोपनिषत्. What is that prompts the mind, the sense and the body to work? That is where the interaction is taken by the yogi. In other words, when yogi interacts with the world, his consciousness interacts with the world. So from his side, he throws his consciousness in the interaction. And how does he see an object or a subject of this world? He does not see it as Pradeepji because it is a nama. He does not see him as a 6, 5 feet, 5.5, 6, whatever feet tall, this much in that post, in that. No, that is a rupam. He goes beyond even the namam rupam of the subject of interaction and goes beyond that to his consciousness. In other words, every interaction of a yogi is interaction of a consciousness with the consciousness of the object of interaction. So consciousness interacts with the consciousness. When consciousness interacts with the consciousness, there is no agreeability or non-agreeability, favorability or non-favorability. Because consciousness being same, same cannot dislike same. Two identical things cannot be compared. The mother, after the birth of the baby, loves the child so much because she does not think child to be a separate entity from her. She thinks she is a part of her body, and truly so. Because of which she has no opinion of the baby that is born. She has only one thing to say, my baby. Because there's no difference between baby and the mother. Similarly, yogi's consciousness, when interacts with an object, it is a consciousness interacting with consciousness, both being same. There is no favorability or unfavorability, agreeability or non-agreeability, anukula samvedana or pratikula samvedana. As a result of which, a yogi has no strategy to procure favorable things, because nothing is unfavorable, nothing is favorable. The result of this is yogi doesn't have to do any more efforts to have good things or bad things or good things. No, because everything is consciousness. No efforts are required of any kind. The net result of this interaction is there are no sanskaras produced. That is the reason a yogi has no pravrutti or aptitude or attitude of the mind, because mind appears as mere conduit for the consciousness. Mind is that pipe which is freely flowing the pristine pure water of consciousness. So there is nothing that is added by the conductor of the pristine pure water. So there is no pollution of any kind. Such interaction of a yogi, because there is no pravrutti, there is no samskara, there is no reason whatsoever to take different bodies and get reborn to fulfill any kind of attachment, because there are no attachments. Because there is no cycling of pattern, there is no need to rebirth. Shrotrasya shrotram manaso mano yad vachoho vacham sau pranasya pranaha chakshusasya chakshuhu atimuchya dhiraha pretasma lokat amruta bhavanti. So the yogi's consciousness, when it interacts with the consciousness of the object, the whole world feels like one. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanneva anupashyata, Ishavasya Upanishad. Tato na vijigupsate. Because now the interaction is not through the mind, not by the mind, but through the mind. The likes and dislikes have disappeared. Unfortunately, for a person who is not a yogi, but a normal human being, his mind does not let the interaction cross through the mind towards the consciousness. And at the mind level itself, we interpret By taking the adequate light from the consciousness, we try to enlighten the area of knowledge with the strength of our mind, which is a jada, which is a limited adjunct, which has limited finite capacity, and that being the reason we are always falling short in terms of any judgment about the world. Such a mind which is working on nama rupa from the mind level itself, not from the consciousness level. When you think from the mind level, you're finite, you're restricted, you're limited, as a result of which a limited capacity of mind can only talk of particulars, not of universal. We all know that a coolie or a porter knows that to push a very heavy load, he has to use a force. But he knows the particular that the hand has to be put on the load and there has to be a pressure applied so that the load moves. This is called particular, but it requires a higher intellect to understand the universal involved in it. And that universal is called Newton's law of motion. By generalizing the observations, the observables are lifted up to a particular height. As you go on expanding your knowledge, your intellect, you start fathoming the universals. Universals are abstract in nature. Show me the law of motion. You can't show it. You can show it by the effect of that law of motion. Effects are particulars. Cause is universal. If one is student of Nyaya Shastra or logic in Western philosophy, there is always a discussion between universals and particulars. A horse is a particular. A cow is a particular. But gotva is universal. Go is cow. Everyone knows about it because it's at a lower mind level. A higher mind thinks about universality of cowness. Can you show cowness? You cannot. But it exists. It's called gotva. It is used in logic. That means abstract ideas. Let us stretch this logic to the quantum physics. The quantum physics itself admits that a particle which is under tremendous state of vibration cannot be pointedly seen or pointedly pointed out to be here. There is a probability that it may be here. Because as you go deeper and deeper, the particulars go away. The sun has a gravitational force which attracts the earth. This even sounds more like a particular. But to understand the gravitational force between two mighty objects as a warp of time and space requires an abstract thinking of Einstein, because he was searching for universal. Theory of relativity is an universal to an extent. At the time when it was propounded in 1905, it could not be proved because the science had not advanced to the point of proving it. It was theoretical physics. Theoretical physics itself means something which cannot be practically shown, but it does exist because it talks of universals. Now, if we talk of universals, then behind our existence, behind the existence of this universe or universes called multiverses, There must be something which is universal. And it's quite a coincidence in English language that what is called as Anada Brahma is called as verse. Uni, one verse, one verse, one nada. The present quantum theory tells us that the whole world has expanded from nothing else but the two micro subatomic particles in tandem with each other gave rise to the whole universe. It's quite an interesting field to observe that there is something called negative energy. The universe was like a ball which was stationary, and at one point of time it was rolled down and it is still rolling down. The galaxies are expanding. If anyone is interested, one can study about negative energy and positive energy. The concept of wormhole, all these point towards one thing, that the universal is very difficult to imagine, much more difficult to understand. And the yogi undertakes a vow to penetrate into the depth of this universal. And the universal, to understand that, one has to use the buddhi by simply making it sharp, penetrating, and putting it inside rather than outside in the world. What is there in the world, even if we study a lot? We shall not get anything more than the universe, because the universe is created by the mind. The externally projected mind, which is nothing else but the universe, even if researched, shall only discover the structural or the functional patterns of the universe, nothing beyond that. The question of what might be researched, the question of why will never be researched outside. All the Nobel laureates and the researchers and the scientists are focusing on certain particulars through the application of universals, and they succeed in getting something. Every Nobel laureate, when he becomes successful in inventing, actually it is a discovery, because in the Lord's universe there is nothing to invent but only to discover. When he tries to discover something, he focuses on his subject of thesis and penetrates by steadying his mind and explores a new truth. He touches a new universal, and then it is held in the world as a epoch-making discovery. The radium was lying right there in the earth. It required enormous effort and concentration by Madame Curie to bring it out. Forget about what she did. See the process. The process was one pointed attention of the mind, bereft of any other intervention, only on one subject, radium. If this can discover so many covered things in the manifested universe, a mind of a yogi, when it focuses inside the mind, how many discoveries will be made? But the prerequisite for a scientist is to concentrate on his subject of his research. Similarly, a prerequisite for a yogi is to stabilize the mind, because stabilized mind chitta vritti nirodha is absence of vikshepa in the mind, a ekagrata, one vikshep in the mind, focusing of the mind. So first and a primary objective of a yogi is to stabilize the mind. To stabilize the mind, in other words, to control the mind which is under constant vexation, waxing and waning of the mind, continuous movement of the mind, which is called vikshepa. 7 different methods have been mentioned by Patanjali Maharaj. Through any of those 7, one can practice stability of mind, stabilization of mind. Chitta nibandhini, nibandhana of chitta. Nibandhana means nishchayena badnati, bind the mind to one. To do that, he has given 7 different methods, which we saw, ekatattva abhyas, tat pratishedhartha, ekatattva abhyas. He says, one tattva. Focus on one thing that will stabilize the mind. Which one thing, sir? What one thing can I focus on? To describe that, he's given those different methods, and the methods which he mentioned were the Maitri Karuna Mudita Upeksha, that was one aspect. Second aspect was Prachardana Vidaranabhyam Tat Pratishedhartam. The respiration is the second aspect, the prana aspect. And then the third one was Vishayotiva Pravritir Utpanna, is what we saw last time. We all are aware of the sensations that we get. We know what a smell is. It is quite possible to focus on the pleasant smell. And Patanjali Maharaj gives us a freedom to choose the smell that you want. I want a jasmine smell. Focus yourself on the nostrils or the tip of the tongue. Think of the jasmine smell, and every day try to bring in that smell to the mind. Remember, the jasmine is not there. The smell which is there in the smruti of the rose or the jasmine is brought in the mind while focusing on the tip of the tongue. In about 6 months or so, by focusing in this manner for about half to 1 hour a day, the effort fructifies and the smell starts coming. This shows 2 things. The smell resides in the mind, not in the object. The object has a smell, but after smelling it once, now it is residing in the mind. The same can be recalled back by enormous amount of concentration on a specific point of the face. Could be the tip of the tongue for the rasam, talu for the rupam, jivva madhye for the sparsha samvitam, and jivva mule for the shabda samvitam. In order of preference, ease, or experience, the vision, the rupam, is what many yogis observe. So effulgent light, the effulgent light, brightness, this is something which is observed by many yogis. The next in line comes the smell. Many people smell the aroma faster. Of the yogis I'm talking. However, the sparsha is difficult comes a little later, and the Shabdam, as if divine words are being spoken into the ears. All this happens because of concentration of the mind, Chitta Nibandhini. This is the third method of, third parikarma, third method of stabilizing the mind. Now, this particular method increases vairagyam, is what we said last time. And the question is, how can it increase? Should ideally increase, because you are testing something beautiful, you are seeing something nice. So it should, you are attaching to the Vishaya. Mind well, we are not attaching to the Vishaya in the true sense, because there is no object to which you are attached. Having a perfume bottle in the hand and smelling it is getting attached to the Vishaya. Now you are getting attached to the essence of the Vishaya. The reason why I left, why a yogi will not hanker about the objects in this world, because he gets the essence of the object at his will. If you are given the utmost essence of mango without eating the mango, why would you look towards a mango? The very feeling that I have eaten a mango has already come to me. There is no need for me to interact in this world and find out where is the mango. So in a way, these experiences put us away from the worldly object, because in the essence form, the yogi starts enjoying it. Mind well, vairagya can be defined in a very funny manner. What is vairagya? You detach from something, but Gurudev says, attach to the higher one. What is a higher one? There is a highest one, but there are highers in between. We detached from the scooter, attached to the car. Why? What happened all of a sudden? You don't like a scooter because you have detached from it. Why the vairagyam came for the scooter? Because car was made available. In other words, atishaya sukham is the only way to develop the vairagya. When we were children, we were so fond of toffees because they were not available. Now rampant toffees are around, you don't feel like eating it. What happened? Vairagyam came to you? No. Now you have something else that you like, which you think, which the mind thinks is superior to what I was liking earlier. This is called a satishaya sukham. One sukha getting replaced by another sukham. Because these experiences that this yogi gets in this meditation, he develops dispassion, vairagya for worldly objects. That is how it helps in dispassion. Now, is it not that these super sensuous experiences can actually trap a yogi? Yes, the danger is lurking there. You might get involved into this and may not progress further. And that is why Maharaj, that is the reason why Guru is needed. There are many aspirants. If you read Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's biography, many aspirants who came to Ramakrishna saying, Guruji, I had Swamiji this experience, that experience. And Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, just carry on, they will come and go. And truly so, all these experiences which are there because of Vishayavati, Pravrutti, they disappear after some time. They do not stay there. When they disappear, the yogi moves to the higher realms. Higher realms give higher contentment. The lower realm is then left. This is called stage-wise progression of Vairagyam. Why do you think the Para Vairagya that we studied earlier, yogi is at such a level of contentment and peace and happiness that he finds absolutely no rasam in this world. We always keep wondering, how is it that Gurudeva did not feel like enjoying the aircraft that he was given to, or it was kept as a disposal? He looked at it as what? What can it give to me? 100,000 people attending the Jnana Yajna. Why didn't the Gurudeva felt so good about it? There is nothing good about it. Just a matter of duty. Dispassion is developed because 1,000 times more happy disposition. Why would anybody leave that and get indulged into some murky water? After having the utmost delicacies to eat, why would we hanker for a dry floor of wheat? You will not, you will spit it out. To that extent, a lady walking on the road for a yogi is ye tanmas vasadi vikaram manasi vichintaya varam varam. A lump of flesh, nothing more than that. Vairagyam. That is why Vishayavati va pravrutir utpanna manasaha sthiti nibandini. This is the third methodology. After the third methodology comes what is called as fourth parikarma. And the fourth parikarma is Vishoka va Jyotishmati. 7 parikarmas are there. 9 obstacles are there. They are called Nava Antaraya. 7 parikarma are there. 7 parikarma, we have seen 3. Vishokava Jyotishmati is the next one. Vishoka means shoka rahit, sorrowless. Jyotishmati means is a pravrutti which is luminous. Sorrowless and luminous is another way of stabilizing the mind. We already know Patanjali Yoga Sutras are the sutras. Sutras are always terse in nature, compact in nature. Delicately, we have to solve what does the sutra means. Our buddhi is not competent to sort them out. So we take the recourse to the commentators, the Bhashyakar. And all the Bhashyakars are not the intellectual interpreters, but those who have experienced the state. When Swami Vivekananda comments on this sutra, he is not giving a verbal commentary, he is talking from his experience. So, Vishoka va Jyotishmati, what does this mean? What it means is Rudaya Pundarike Dharayati. Rudaya Pundarike. Pundarika means Kamala, lotus. Rudaya Pundarike Dharayato Ya Buddhi Samvita. Buddhisattvam hi bhaswaram akashakalpam tatra sthiti vaisharadyat pravrutti surya indra graha mani prabharupakarena vikalpate. The meaning of this is the yogis have imagined, or there is in Rud Kamala. The Rud Kamala, which is called lotus, it is also called a Nabhi Kamala. It is with 6 petals, presumed to be at around a Nabhi below the chest. It is called Rud Pundarikaksha, Pundarika. Some of them put it on the right side. Raman Maharshi used to say that the heart is on the right side. This heart is not the physiological or the anatomical heart that we know of. This heart is the place where the pranas traverse. We are talking of Sukshma Sharira. Do not compare any Sthula Sharira organ with it. This Hridaya Pundarikaksha, this lotus, is in inverted form. These are all the experiences of yogi. A six-petaled lotus looking downwards. It is also called as a Buddhi Guha. In Kathopanishada, we have seen time and again, Nito Guhayam, Guha, as if placed inside a cave. There is a lotus, six-petaled looking downwards. The yogi focusing on this Buddhi Guha, on this Rud Kamala, on this Rud Pundarika, with the use of Rechaka. Rechaka is the Vayu that is Nissaranartham coming out. It puts a pressure on this petal and the petals are turned upwards. When the petals are turned upwards, it is the aspect of happening at that place. But what actually happens is the focus on this buddhi leads to two types of samvita. One is called chit samvita, another is called asmita samvita. It may sound technically too jargonish word, but chit samvita means the buddhi, means the part of the mind. When focused there, the buddhi is supposed to be highly luminous. There are two characteristics of buddhi. One is jyotishmati, luminous. Another is vyapaka, huge expanse. So when the yogi sits in sukhasana or padmasana, focuses his mind on the Hridaya Pundarika, regulates his breathing, and starts focusing slowly on this Hridaya Pundarik, the lotus, the buddhi, imagining to be situated in the part below the diaphragm, somewhere close to the Manipura chakra. And when the focusing is complete, the mind starts experiencing highly luminous, enormous amount of white, effulgent light. It is growing in all directions, coming as wave upon wave, moving and expanding in all directions. The directions are endless. It appears to be a huge expanse, the Vibhur Vyapyata, the hugeness or the vastness, and the effulgence, the bright white light coming in gushes, waves of ocean. Imagine a whole ocean full of white water. This is called Jyotishmati. At the same time with this feeling, the whole connotation, notion of the universe dissolves. The feeling that comes is of only I am. The Asmita. I am the only one. There's nothing here except me. The vastness, the huge expanse, tremendous amount of whiteness all around, sparkling, bright, luminous. The feeling of luminous and vastness is Buddhi Samvita. And there is nothing remaining except me, I am, is Asmita Samvita. This puts the mind in control. This is called Vishoka Va Jyotishmati. The feeling is almost having a vision of Atman, though it is not. So Vishoka Va Jyotishmati is nothing else but a pravrutti of Buddhi Samvita Rupini and Asmitakara Rupini. Between the chest and the stomach, the Hridaya Pundarika, the Satta of Buddhi is imagined and the focus of the mind yogi does there. This leads to Chitta Shuddhi, helps in concentration or ekagrata in this manner, and such ekagrata in turns purifies the chitta. So it is called Chitta Vaisharada. We know Shalya Visharada. By degree, I am a Shalya Visharada. Visharada means not expert. Visharada means through the Shalya, one who purifies, normalizes, Nirmala Karanam, Chitta Shuddhi Karanam. Asmitakara Rupini is Asmita Tattva Sthita Chitta Taranga Shunya Mahasagara Sama Shantam Rajasa Tamasa Rahita Vyapaka Anantam. Both the feelings come at the same time. The feeling itself is so good, we cannot call it as sukhakari because it is beyond the sukha. Once one reaches in such kind of situation, the yogi doesn't feel like getting up from his seat. He forgets the food. After the death of Ramakrishna Paramhamsa, all the young monks led by Narendra went to Varaha Nagar in a dilapidated house where there was nothing to eat, even to the extent that they had to eat the leaves of all the shrubs that were growing in the backyard. The routine, if you see, observe, and read minutely in the biography of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa after his death, all these young monks, Shashi Maharaj, also known as Ramakrishnananda Maharaj, was the in charge of the cooking. Every morning, the monks, young monks, used to get up and sit in meditation. And it was only at around 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock, Shashi Maharaj used to go with a stick in the hand, waking everybody up, saying that, go, get up, go and have your bath and have your food. What happened? The poverty was forgotten. The food was forgotten. The bath was forgotten because everybody was in this state. Vishoka va Jyotishmati. Our Gurudeva himself, intermittently, even during his busy schedule and tenure, used to go into this meditation. And mind well, Gurudeva's meditation is miles ahead of what we are describing just now. What we are describing is still not the meditation or the samadhi. It is the first part of the samadhi. That is how, whenever Gurudeva is to come out of the samadhi, it was like an enormously charged, powerful, energetic structure. The energy comes from the prana, not from the exercise and the food that we try to take. That is why A yogi is always a vibrant structure, full of energy, enormous amount of power built inside because of the prana shining forth. Another methodology, which is the fifth method or the parikarma of stabilizing mind, is vitaraga vishayam vachittam. It is a very interesting methodology. You cannot focus on anything of these four so far described, doesn't matter. This is something which we should really understand because it can be implemented. A very minuscule attempt has been made by even me to do this particular type of concentration, and it has worked results, wonderful results. What is vitaraga vishayam vachittam? What is vitaraga vishaya? Vitaha means apagataha, gone. Vitaha apagataha raga yasmat chittat tat vitaraga chittam. That mind from where raga means not only anger. Please do not use raga. Raga means coloring. Rouge, the French word rouge has come from raga, mula rouge. Rag means coloring. Coloring means getting attached to subject, means vairagyam. So the one whose chitta, heart, mind, antakarana is completely devoid of rag, attachment to the subjects, if you focus on such a chittam, you can get stability of mind. The question comes to us, my chittam itself is right now having vikshepa. How can I focus on my chittam? No, sir, not your chittam. Of those whose chitta is devoid of raga. Who are those? All those known to you, Swami Vivekananda or Gurudeva himself. Sit in Sukhasana or Pranayam, or the Padmasana. Regulate your breathing. Let it go very rhythmically. Let the breathing be not affected by any thought or the motion from this outer world. Forget all your relations. No anger, no wife, no husband, no children, no friends, no possessions, no body. Now focus your mind on Gurudev. Focusing on mind comes a smiling personality of Gurudev in front of us. Stop looking at the external aspect of Gurudev. Go inside the mind of Gurudev. See the pristine purity of his mind. His mind which is pure, which is clean, sparkling like a prism with a clear reflection of consciousness. That's Gurudeva's chitta. Vitaraga Vishaya Purna Chitta. The Vishayas are not there. No contamination of any kind. Focusing on that chitta, I can stabilize my mind. So, of any great yogi, where we have reverence or shraddha, by focusing on his chitta, my chitta can be stabilized. Now we understand the meaning of the Abhanga said by Tukarama. Bolava Vithala, Karava Vithala, Pahava Vithala, Jive Bhave. Bolava Vithala, speak of Vithala. Pahava Vithala, see only Vithala. Karava Vithala, do Vithala. Jive bhave, with the full concentration. This is fifth methodology of stabilizing the mind. While studying Yoga Sutra, we must understand that the whole focus is on mind, 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 and mind. And the second focus is on ekagrachitta. How is it that all of a sudden you want to be a yogi? Will it be possible? You must start from your daily activities. Do everything with full focus and concentration. Eat with full concentration. Drink with full concentration. Drive with full concentration. Sit with full concentration. Watch with full concentration. Think with full concentration. Do not do two things at a time. Forget about multitasking. Take one problem, focus on it, solve it, and lock it. Do not carry forward a problem into another problem. Do not carry forward the mental frame in one problem to the another problem. Stupidly, we come home and tell our wife, don't ask me anything, I'm in a bad mood. Because you carried forward what happened there in the home. Lock the office when you step out of the office. Lock the home when you're in the office. Lock everything when you're bathing. Lock the future when you're in present. Do one thing at a time. Do it with full concentration. Arrest the mind's speed. There is inherent speed in the body and the mind. Everything is hurried up. We are running to the office, running to the car, running to the food, running everywhere. Arrest the speed. Want to shut the door? Do it slowly. Don't bang it. Banging is hurry. A question is asked to you, you jump to answer. Don't hurry. Listen, then answer. Slow down. Shant. Breathe deeply. When you sit alone, observe the things around with a neutral passion. Enjoy the beauty of everything around without getting painted and tainted by the mind. The art of yoga extends everywhere. By having chaotic life, I cannot study Yoga Sutra and be a yogi. If the concentration has to increase while in meditation or a practice of meditation, there has to be exhibition of concentration in day-to-day activities. If the raga, the commonest example of ragam is anger, control the krodha. There are methodologies to be applied in the external world and in solitude. So these are the 5 parikarmas. So far we have seen 2 more are still left. Any one of them we can adopt, but it should be comprehensive and all-pervading. You cannot exclude your day-to-day life and be a yogi. The entire gamut of life has to be brought under the spell of yoga. Hopefully we shall be successful in our attempt. provided we are able to keep our mind alert at every moment and shun all the devilish tendencies that try to creep in the mind. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
May not have heard correctly, but when you were talking of the fifth method here, you
Yes.
mentioned, or actually the fourth one,
Yes.
you mentioned Hriday Pundariksha,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
you also mentioned, you mentioned six petal lotus on the right side of the body.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, I'm just trying to, from what one has sort of read, is this a chakra that you're referring to, or is this something else?
There are two aspects to this. This is not directly referring to a chakra, because in terms of chakra, the Manipur chakra is at a navel level.
Yes, yes,
So,
that's what
so that is why this is not Manipur chakra. This is yogi's contemplation of the seat of buddhi. Chakras have no relation with buddhi. Chakras are related to the nadis, which are activated by the pranas. So prana is the energy that activates the silent nadi called sushumna nadi and pushes forward the prana upwards towards the sahasrara chakra. That is part of the kundalini yoga. What we are referring now is Rudaya Pundarik, that is the lotus of the heart, is the seat of the buddhi. Now, buddhi is an abstract thing. If I ask you, show me antakarana, you cannot show it. But yogis have imagined it to be at a site which is between the chest and the stomach, between the diaphragm and the navel region. In terms of some yogis, it is on the right side, as I told you, Raman Maharshi. Now, these are individual experiences. The seat of buddhi does not matter as long as it is imagined to be. For example, in Hatha Yoga, they call it Angushta Matra Jyoti. In Kathopanishad, it is called Angushta Matra. Now, it is like a flame of the thumb size. Here it is called as lotus of the heart. Some of them say six petal lotus. There are different versions that are available based on the experiences of yogis, whatever they, Divya Anubhuti. It is Divya Anubhuti, divine experiences. Based on that, everyone has described. But that is the reason Patanjali Maharaj has just mentioned is that Vishoka va Jyotishmati. He has not spoken about the anatomical positioning or the imaginary positioning. So it varies from yogi to yogi. The accepted norm is between the heart and the stomach, between the chest and the stomach. On the right side, guha, because it is as if you are fathoming inside some depth, and the nature of that buddhi is what you are supposed to focus on, not the locus of the buddhi, not the location. Nature of the buddhi is vibhur vyapyata, sagara sama, and jyotishmati, luminous. So imagine the effulgence. That is why while describing, I described oceans, waves of effulgence in the ocean. This description, I have not given mine. I have simply borrowed it from verbatim words of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, what he felt when Kalima called him. He has described this. Hari.
I'm. And sir, technically, I may have got
Yes.
distracted. The fourth and the fifth one, the Sanskrit names I remember, but the first three, if you can just, give us the names and the brief,
Yeah.
because I've seen some notes, but I'm not being able to relate it.
The first one is more with the interaction with the universe.
Ah,
So Maitri, Mudita, this is it. Now what happens is, how is it that the interaction with world will stabilize the mind? The alertness required while interacting, constantly telling the mind to be happy with the happiness of the world and to be very, very compassionate with the sorrows of the world, to be happy or harshat bharita, mudita bharita for everything that is good, and to be absolutely udasin about the bad things in the world is itself an exercise of the mind. So that is the first one. Second is by using the respiration, the pranas, the narration of which we saw to a little extent because we reserved it for seeing the detailing when we go to the pranayama in the sadhana pada. So second is sadhana. Third is by focusing your mind on the sensations that have come to us by interaction with the objects outside, simply taking that sensation in the mind. I have eaten the mango, so I know what a taste is. That is my experience in the worldly affairs. Now I take that particular sweet taste which I enjoyed because somewhere in my mind it is stored. I bring that back again. I recollect the smriti from the smriti part and focus on that and experience that again without coming in contact with that particular object. That is Vishayavati Pravrutti. That is third one. The fourth one was Vishokava Jyotishmati, what we saw. That is by focusing on the lotus of the heart, the Buddhi. The fifth one is Vitaragi Rudaya. Any yogi whose heart has been purified, about whom we have enormous Shraddha, Gurudeva, Swami Vivekananda, Ramakrishna Paramahansa, and we anyway are in the awe of them. Think of Gurudeva. What do you feel? You feel elated. You feel good. See the feeling, suddenly there is a Sattva Udaya. That is the beauty of these yogis. There is a Sattva Udaya. That Sattva Udaya, you increase further by focusing on them. Get the Gurudeva in front of you. First, you see him with his lean body, long hair, the beard, the spectacles, the sparkling eyes. Then go inside. Think of his buddhi. And this is where you focus. So that is Vitaraga Vishaya Vachittam. Then we are going to come further, remaining three, of which out of this seven, there are two more left. Out of this seven, the one that is commonly adopted by us is taking a murti in front of you and focusing on that murti. We are going to come to that because that is the most easiest found out by generally everybody. But that doesn't mean that is the only way you can concentrate or meditate. You can meditate on so many things. Patanjali Maharaj has given 7 different options, and all these are meant for what? This is Samadhi Dwaram, to reach to that stage. Still, we are not in Savitarka, Savichara. No, we are before that. This is a exercise for developing concentration. That is why Patanjali Maharaj, especially in that Vishayavati, he says everybody should practice this and at least have that sensation of beautiful aroma or the taste, so that you get convinced that I am not talking anything other than actual experience. In fact, in the Bhashyam, the Vachaspati Mishra Maharaj has insisted that every yogi in the beginning sadhaka must get a test of these experiences so that his faith in yoga becomes more. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay ji, for explaining this again. We got it more imbibed into that. Thank you.
Hari Om, Sanjay ji.
Hari Om.
Sanjay ji, I have a few questions. One
Ji.
is in the prana by throwing out and restraining the breath. So Swami Vivekananda has more explanation on. So I read it a bit hurriedly. It is about the prana making new channels, and the brain will not allow it.
Yes.
The more
Yes,
thoughtful the man, the more complicated will be the streets in his brain. And those two paragraphs, we did not cover it. If we don't have time, we can do it later. The second question is on the forms of the third method of concentration. So you are saying, so the way I understood when I was reading it is, when you are focusing, on the tip of your nose, you get wonderful perfumes. And you are saying that those perfumes were inherent in the mind. So then focusing on the tip of the tongue, I mean, it's already there then, right? So are those inherently there in the, so if you're focusing on the tip of the tongue, then does it actually give the, you are actually feeling the different flavors of the food, or was, how does that work?
Yeah, you're right. What you're asking is very right. When you focus on that particular aspect of, let's say, tip of nose or the center of the tongue, that particular focus point has an ability to arouse those feelings. That is why even if you suppose don't have aroma in your mind, but when you focus on your tip of nose, because the nose itself is related to Gandhavati, you will start getting the aroma, whether you want it or you don't want it. So there are two things. If you know in anticipation the result and the focus, then naturally the results come faster. Or even if you don't have the result in mind, and if you just focus at the tip of the nose, even then those will come. But does that mean that every time Gurudeva concentrated on tip of nose, he got the aroma? No. What happens is this happens only in the initial stage of sadhaka. Later on, they vanish. They are there in the beginning. Moment you proceed to the forward journey, upward journey, these things vanish. Does that mean that they cannot bring it back? They can bring it back, but they find it useless to bring it back. So the flavor or the taste or the rupam or the shabda or the sparsha at the jihva madhye, all that can, by focusing itself, it comes. The divine vision will come. The rupam, if you concentrate on talu, the vision will come automatically. You don't even have to think of a vision, the vision will come to you. But if you are asked to describe a vision, the only description you can give is, it was divine. I felt good, something. So it is super sensuous, as they call it. And as far as the Vivekananda Maharaj has explained about the channels, it's a very, very critical thing. And it has got a lot of scientific meaning into it. Remember, every time you interact with the world, there is an experience born, and that experience, which we call samskara, in brain, it is converted into a formation of a channel. That channel is called neuronal connection. A new neuronal connection is formed. That's why he has used an analogy of a lump of a, if brain is considered as a lump and experience is taken as a needle, this is how he has described. What it means is, if I eat mango for the first time in the childhood, that mango's taste creates one channel called neuronal channel. Now, every time our brain is evolving different neuronic connections, different synapses are formed. It is called synapses in neurology language. New channels are formed. So what happens is, once the channels are formed, the brain gets used to use these channels rather than creating new channels. That is why people have what is called as prejudice. What is prejudice? You say, moment you say white people, oh, all white people are very snobbish. It's a channel that is formed because of some experience, or either heard or actual experience, and the channel. So when a new channel is to be formed, there is a resistance. That is why Vivekananda Maharaj has written there that people don't want to study Upanishads. Why don't you feel like studying examination? Examination is a pain for us. Why pain? Oh, new knowledge, new neuronal connection. We don't want it. What about the serial? The next session of serial I want to see. Why? Because already the experience channel is formed. Now you want to see what is happening. So smriti, or the memory, is existing neuronal connections, which we intend to use again and again, rather than developing new neuronal connection. A yogi develops new neuronal connection. And it gives me a pleasure to add one more thing. The latest discovery in neuroscience is that when a person becomes compassionate, new neuronal connections are developed. Those neurons have been physically demonstrated these days by the neurologist. And luckily, The name given to these neurons is called Gandhi neuron. What it means is, as your nature starts changing and becomes more and more compassionate, there will be new tracks, new channels formed. A yogi, by his sadhana, forms new channels and then slowly transforms the entire brain or the gray matter, as Vivekananda Maharaj refers to it. Hari Om.
Sanjay ji, that evoked another question in my mind.
Yes.
It's not, as according to the explanation, it's not good to have more neurons to create, so that it gets occupied with various things. So by birth, there's no neurons attached, or all of a sudden, how these some people are only fascinated with the music and all kind of things happening. Is it because the existing neurons, or it is developed one?
There are two. The setup of neurons or the central nervous system that you are born with definitely has some predilections or the aptitudes that are coming from the past impressions. Because what you have done is basically you've taken a new shape. What is actually getting carried forward is nothing else but the unfulfilled desires bundled into prarabdha and coming into this. So there will be definitely some predilection. And then based on those predilections of sattva, rajasa, tamasa, you shall undertake activities to ossify, crystallize those tendencies. So if you have an inclination for music, you will definitely pursue music. Gurudeva was from his yesteryears a yogi. So right from childhood, he started inclined towards meditation. In his childhood, he used to meditate on Shiva. Did we do it? We did not. Why? We were born both as children, as babies and human babies. But the difference came from the past samskaras because the channels were earlier developed. However, by doing sadhana, it is possible to create new channels, because only tendency is not enough. If you are intelligent, doesn't mean you should not study. You have to study. You may require to study little, but the fact remains you have to study. So similarly, a body with a certain amount of sattva raja tamas based on my past impressions is what is given to me. Now to develop it further is my duty. So the sthiti is what I have to achieve. Paristhiti is what my past impressions have given. And that is how it goes. So that is why Kumar Gandharva, Bhimsen Joshi, Pandit Jasaraj, Kishori Amonkar, all these, Basavaraj Rajguru, Mallikarjun Mansur, they were all having the ear for the swaram because of past impressions. But they developed further by ardent sadhana. Hari Om.